It's Sanders time. I told you. We told you. The progressive YouTube world told you. We said Bernie has the best shot of capturing the presidency. We said this in 2016, and we said it again last year. And finally, the mainstream media is catching up. Not that the mainstream media has a shred of decency or credibility, but they finally have to report that Bernie Sanders has a good chance of winning the primaries. You know, after all their sleazeball, slimy, slanted coverage of him, I think it's time for a reckoning. Just this past week, we had a slew of articles from the New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, the Wall Street Journal, HuffPost, and all that, talking about the potential for Bernie Sanders' presidency. Now, I know I'm going to sound like I'm tooting my own horn here, but y'all late to the game. Bernie's killing it in the polls, and, just recently there was a Des Moines CNN poll that showed Bernie leading with 20% of the people responding saying that he was their first choice. Not just in polling, but he's also killing it in the fundraising sphere. He's got the most money on hand for a Democratic candidate. He's got the most donors, the most donations, the most volunteers, and it's an $18 average per donation. That's some serious grassroots support. And in quarter four of last year, he raised $34 million. And that's just an absolutely staggering number. Pete Buttigieg raised $24 million, and he was in second place. So Sanders beat Pete Buttigieg by $10 million. And he's getting these donations from teachers, from people who work in Amazon, Walmart, Starbucks, and Target. It's a completely working class funded campaign. Now you look at Pete Buttigieg, this guy gets fundraisers and big dollar donors at his wine caves. So just look at what Bernie Sanders can do. He's funding his campaign, small dollar donations, has the most money, and it's because of his message. Do you think it's because how he looks? He's an old dude who's balding. So it's got to be his message that people are excited about. And in 2016, people completely wrote him off. Then in 2020, they were still writing him off. Leftist YouTube and Twitter just clowned Chris Cillizza and CNN when Kamala dropped out because they were predicting that Beto O'Rourke and Kamala were going to be the top frontrunners, and they're not even in the race anymore. So no one gave Bernie a chance because they wanted to establish that narrative that Bernie wasn't electable, that he was too old, he was too radical, and so on. And you could say, they were doing that for a variety of reasons. It was DC speak, it was establishment speak, it was the pundit class doing all the talking. So it was like an echo chamber for them. And they just kept repeating the same things over and over. But at the same time, I think nefariously, the media and their corporate overlords and their bosses, they did not want a Sanders presidency. They still don't, because a Sanders presidency would rock the boat. It would tax the rich. It would fundamentally change our political system. And they're still going to do hit jobs, and it might even be even worse now that he's in the lead. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen. But they're finally, reporting on the fact that Bernie has a really good chance of winning the primaries and capturing the presidency. Now, I had a coworker who thought Bernie was finished due to his stance on, due to his progressive stances being co-opted by other candidates. But take a look at what happened. Bernie is the last one standing in terms of his consistency and staying true to his beliefs. We saw that Elizabeth Warren is just another war hawk, is just kind of another someone that just rationalizes American imperialism, is completely waffling on Medicare. And Pete Buttigieg, this guy, earlier in the camp, there were Twitter videos and tweets by him of being progressive, of saying how he supports Medicare for all and all that. Now he's just your regular neoliberal. And, my other friend, he thought Bernie was done when he had his heart attack. And yet he's surging in the polls. The progressive left have been correct all this time. And I don't mean to brag, but it feels good to be proven, or it feels good to prove people wrong. Now, I don't like making predictions, but in this case, I think Bernie Sanders is going to win. He's going to win Iowa. He came within 0.3% of winning the Iowa caucuses in 2016. So this time he's back with more money, more grassroots support, a more robust campaign organization. So we're going to win, folks.